All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob at Smirking Gun Reviews, and we are back with another one of my final viewing episodes. Today we're talking about 1997's movie, The Relic. It's a movie that I haven't seen in about 20 years. Again, I'm trying to watch movies or force myself to watch movies. That's the premise of this. Of movies I haven't seen in a long time that at the time I really liked or thought I liked at the time. And if I hadn't forced myself to watch them, I'd probably never see them again. So this is my way of watching them one last time, at least having a video document telling myself what I thought of the movie so I don't have to see it again. In the case of this movie, yes, this is definitely one of those movies that I don't ever have to see again. I remember at the time really liking it. Probably because back in 1997, the X-Files were like in full swing, and the X-Files is one of my favorite TV shows. And so this reminds me of a lot of what was going on with like that show. And this was probably made partially because of the popularity of the X-Files, even though it is based on a book. Never read it. So yeah, this is a Paramount movie, and it's basically, this guy is down in South America and he finds this like, he's with this tribe, and they give him this drink, and he's kind of hallucinates. It's got to do with this like mythical legend, this god that they have down there that's like a chimera, a bunch of different creatures that's like a spirit animal of it. And he works for like the Natural History Museum in Chicago, where he's sending all this stuff back, and he doesn't want it sent there at the last minute. But unfortunately, it ends up there. And what starts out as these like leaves, these animal hormone type things on these leaves, ends up creating this monster that starts terrorizing this museum slowly throughout the course of this movie. At first, they think it's just some guy killing people, and then by the end of the movie, it's this full-blown monster movie that is pretty goddamn silly. And it is not good. But it also is one of those, so bad it's good kind of movies. I watched it like a bunch of times when it first came out and then just never saw it again. So let's start with the cast. Penelope Ann Miller is one of those actresses that I liked a lot back then. She's done a whole bunch of things, but she's never done a lot of movies since the 90s. She was a really pretty good actress. I always thought that she was kind of underutilized. She was in movies like Carlito's Way and Big Top Pee-wee. And in this, she's got that like very close to Gillian Anderson look in this movie. Again, somebody who looks kind of like Dana Scully. I don't know how much that played into the casting of this role, if it had anything to do with it. It just seems really suspicious that this movie had this kind of ties, because there are two X-Files episodes that this movie actually reminds me of. One is F. Emasculata from season 2, which just barely has anything to do with this. It makes me think of it because there's a researcher down in Brazil who finds this thing that ends up like infecting a bunch of people. The other one is from season 3, which is considered one of the worst episodes, I think, of the series. It truly is, actually. Teso dos Bichos, I think that's how you say it, where there's this guy down in like Peru who like finds this tribe who gives them this drug that's like this like plant like thing called God, I can't remember what it's like, something of the soul. And it has to do with like a jaguar spirit and this like relic they bring back from there. And it starts like, it's like a jaguar spirit. And all of a sudden, like, people start dying in this museum. And this guy comes back and he's infected with some sort of thing. You don't know if it's him that's killing people. And that really reminds me of the plot of this movie, is that something brought back from South America to a museum, like, starts killing people. Except, at least in this movie, it doesn't have like puppet cats. And in the like a bunch of feral cats attacking people. At least in this, it has a monster. But it does suspiciously remind me of that episode of the X-Files. But to go back to Penelope Ann Miller, she's fine in this. I mean, she's basically doing like a Dana Scully meets Ellen Ripley character. Tom Sizemore's in this as well. And this is another one of those movies where Tom Sizemore is a decent actor. He actually is playing it straight this time as just kind of a detective. He's not playing weird. The only thing quirky about his character is that he's going through like a divorce or a breakup, and so, his wife got the dog, and he's like superstitious about things and about luck, and he's got a lucky bullet, and there's like a story behind that, and it just so happens that the museum is having this like big event that's based on superstitions. So, I don't know if all this is in the book, but Tom Sizemore is fine in this, but in the end, he really does nothing. He really pretty much does nothing except yell at people and kind of just be the Mulder to her Scully in this, except, he's supposed to be like the guy that's going to get things done, but really by the end of this movie, he has done almost nothing. He's like in a pretty ineffectual character in the end. Linda Hunt, it's like on NCIS, and in one of my favorite movies, Silverado, is like the museum curator, I think. She's great in this. James Whitmore, who's in Shawshank Redemption as God, the guy who hung himself. What the hell is wrong with me? I am not going to do this to myself. I can click on his name and like really quickly get his like, okay, what was he in the frickin' Shawshank Redemption? Come on, we're almost there. Brooks was here. He's in this as like this old guy and works at the museum. He knows a lot about like South American tribes. He's kind of like an exposition character. Clayton Rohner's in this. I remember just because he was also on the X-Files in a season 6 episode called The Rain King, where he played a guy who pretends to like make it rain for people in droughts. His character's name was Daryl Moots. That's right. That's one of the kind of like more lighthearted, funny episodes of the X-Files. But he's good in this as just kind of a small detective role, kind of a secondary character. There's a lot of like character actors in this. Yes, I want to talk about Audra Lindley is in this. She gets one scene as a coroner. Audra Lindley, this is one of the last things she did before she died. And she's most famous for being known as Mrs. Roper from Three's Company. She gets almost nothing to do in this, but she is kind of like the quirky coroner character. And it's nice to see her get like some fun lines and like be, as an older actress, who was very near death at the time where we didn't know it, has this kind of memorable little role, and it's kind of interesting, but it's unfortunate that it's in a forgettable movie like this. But you got other people in here like David Proval from like The Sopranos is in here as a guard who gets almost nothing to do in here. You get like Eddie Jemison's in this from like the Ocean's movies. Don Harvey's in this as a guard really quickly. He's in movies like Casualties of War. He always plays like a scumbag shitbird in movies. And so it's got a pretty decent cast for this movie. Peter Hyams did the directing in this movie, and he did movies like Schwarzenegger's End of Days. He did, what else did this guy do? Sorry, I still am not 100% here. Let's look up Peter Hyams. He directed Time Cop in 2010 and Sean Connery's Outland. So there's a lot of like people involved in this, and it's pretty crazy. So in the end, this is like your basic monster movie. It has the typical tropes and cliches all over it. It's got your, we have to close the beaches scenario type with like Jaws, except in this case it's a museum. Like somebody gets killed. Of course, it's like the black janitor or the black security guard who's smoking a joint. When he gets killed, he's like the first victim, not counting all these people on the boat. So we're going to get into spoilers a little bit here, mostly for people who have seen this movie. If you haven't seen this movie or you don't plan on seeing this movie, I'm just going to kind of lay it out here a little bit. But it is pretty point by point. You've got your characters that are going to probably die. You get like a couple of characters that you care about, kind of like a couple of cop characters that are like you figure they're going to die at some point, so that you kind of like they humanize them a little bit, so that when they bite it, you're going to feel kind of bad about it. yeah, you get like the one cocky scientist that's competing with Penelope Ann Miller, so you figure he's out. You know, you get the guard who doesn't want to follow the detective's policies because he's just, that character. You get the rich people that, you figure they're throwaway characters. Everything in this is cliche, basically. There's hilarious parts where like the security at the when this whole thing hits the fan, the security goes down like after one thing. It's like at first they don't explain what happened to the security at all. It's like everything just falls apart like nothing. Later you find out why, but it's like at the time everything just falls apart for no reason. And it's actually funnier watching all these people try to get out of the museum and just trampling each other. Like they actually damage themselves more than the monster does. But when the monster finally does show up, there is some, it's Stan Winston effects. And there are some pretty fun stuff, but it's pretty one-note thing because all the monster does is grab people by the head with its big mandibles and rips their heads off because it wants the hypothalamus that's in our brains, because of course we have something in us that it couldn't get off the leaves, because the leaves all get burned earlier in the movie, basically, there's like a couple left. So it starts eating us. And it's just after seeing as many heads, enough heads getting cut off, it's like pretty much what else you got, people just kind of getting thrown at this thing. Like there's some scenes where people are just like, they're basically feeding the monster, like more people. Like you got the cops that come in and are like, holy shit, we got to get out of here, seeing, all this other stuff. And like for the first hour, it is really boring because it is just them trying to figure out who's killing these people. And it's, you got, the typical precocious kids who get locked in the museum stuff. And you think they're gonna die, but they don't, and you kind of wish they did because at least something would happen. So it takes like a really long time for this movie to really get going. There are jump scares up the ass. You got the whole typical cliche of the cat jumping out, which also that's what made me think of Taste Overdose Bicos because of the cat thing. Again, it has like your usual stuff in it. A bunch of people trying to get out in a dark tunnel, all that stuff. The CGI is early, 1997. The creature isn't terrible, but you don't see enough of it to like really get going. And honestly, there's like so many times that this thing probably could have gotten out that you're wondering, why is it still in the museum? Penelope Ann Miller turns into Ellen Ripley at the end of this movie, where she just, and MacGyver, where she starts like figuring stuff out really quickly to make like bombs and how to take this thing out. Her last, they give you that last line before they kill something, and it's like, usually it's badass, but she just says, go to hell. And I was like thinking, man, why don't you say like burn motherfucker or something? I don't know. But this is one of those movies that like when I look back and I go, okay, I guess because I like the X-Files at the time, this movie that's probably why I liked it back then. Now looking at it, I was laughing pretty much throughout the whole thing. Not the whole thing, because the first part was kind of boring, and there's a lot of like, not really character development, just let's find a guy killing, like they find this like bum in they try to blame this on a guy that's like this homeless guy that's like hiding in the basement of the museum, who just happens to be a convicted rapist, suspected murderer. Like he's got like all these like things that were owned by, there's like supposedly the blood of one of the victims on him, and he's got like things from the people on the ship that don't make sense. Like I guess he must have, I don't know. But like just so happens this guy's in the basement. It's just full of all that type of stuff that this movie could have been better, but honestly, I'm glad it is what it is. Because some of the performances aren't bad in here. It's just they've got nothing to do. So anyway, that's about it. I'm actually disappointed. I thought that this would be something I have more to talk about, except just pointing out references to the X-Files and the Three's Company somehow. So anyway, that's The Relic. I do recommend checking it out if you want to just kind of see one of those bad movies. It ends so abruptly too. There's like no epilogue to it, which you thought maybe they would give you like a couple of minutes of something, but no. It has kind of that Die Hard type ending where it's like, the mayor standing up for the cop that he was like, chastising earlier, and the mayor in this. Oh my gosh, he's such a like he has like some bizarre lines about talking about his wife's cleavage earlier, and then he starts giving this speech that's like really over the top for like a museum exhibition, that even the cops are like the voice of the audience and it going, is the mayor speaking English right now? But so anyway, that's about it for this. I am glad that I watched it. But now again, I don't think I ever need to see this movie again. So anyway, if you like this video, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications for my videos. I hope everybody likes this and maybe wants to check it out. If not, I hope I gave you enough of a synopsis to stay away from it. But otherwise, this is Rob for Smoking Gun Review saying we'll see you on the next one. I am making one of my essential film videos a little bit later. Tomorrow we got Better Call Saul, and that's about it. So thank you very much for choosing this video, and have a great day. Yeah, it's Sunday, right? Okay, bye.